A warm welcome to this package of your Energy Frontiers for the week with me, Justina Okechukwu. This show is proudly supported by the African Energy Chamber. We begin as always with the headline energy news of the week. A new analysis by market research firm Rystad Energy shows that the global market for oil and gas contractors is expected to rise to a peak of $1 trillion by 2025 and remain at an elevated level for several years afterwards. The energy services sector forecast shows that oil and gas spending will stay above $920 billion annually on average for the 2022 to 2028 period, aided by strong growth in the midstream part of the industry to liquefy, transport, and regasify natural gas. Global energy major British Petroleum and its partner in the Kaya offshore Profound block, Cosmos Energy, are making significant progress on the Yakaar-Teranga gas project located offshore Senegal in West Africa. The British major is targeting its second large-scale natural gas development offshore Senegal, with the project partners expected to announce a final investment decision for the massive gas development in 2023, and with first production slated for 2024. Tanzania's Ministry of Energy and state-owned Emirates National Oil Company Group have signed a deal to develop a world-class national import gateway and oil and gas storage facility in Tanzania to serve the country and the Eastern and Central African region. The agreement supports the UAE's 2023 priorities to expand economic partnerships in Africa and its goal of doubling the size of its economy. London-based energy giant Royal Dutch Shell has reported a record annual profit of $39.9 billion in 2022, the highest since the company's inception and doubles the previous year's record. Shell also announced a $4 billion share buyback program, which is expected to be completed by its first quarter 2023 results, and a 15% dividend per share increase for the fourth quarter. In the meantime, more than 11,000 residents of Nigeria's oil-producing Niger Delta have filed a claim for compensation against Shell at the London High Court in a long-running court case set to test the multinational company's responsibility for environmental damage overseas. The claim is expected to come to a trial in 2024, at the latest in a string of court cases against Royal Dutch Shell over its environmental record in Nigeria. Scatec, a Norwegian renewable energy company in emerging markets, has signed a deal to sell its 42% equity share in the 258 megawatt Upington solar power plant based in South Africa. The deal is due to go to a subsidiary of Stanlib Infrastructure Fund 2 for a 979 million rand or 569 million Norwegian kroner. The funding arm of the African Development Bank Group, Sustainable Energy for Africa, has announced a $1 million technical assistance grant to drive electric mobility in Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and South Africa. The grant, which was given to the Green Mobility Facility for Africa, is expected to provide technical assistance and investment capital to expand private sector investment in sustainable transport solutions. And that was a snapshot of your top energy news. When we return, another record year for the global solar industry from the new report by the Africa Solar Industry Association. More on this in just a moment. Welcome back to the program. The African Solar Industry Association recently released its 2023 annual solar outlook report, which indicates another record year for solar energy around the world. The report, which includes a country-by-country analysis, noted the growing spread of solar adoption across the continent, which the industry group says is no longer limited to the hotspots of South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt. A total of 49 African countries are now said to be considering at least 1 megawatt of solar installations and 29 on more than 100 megawatts. I sat down to a chat on this with John van Zuylen, the CEO of Africa Solar Industry Association, and he tells me how solar is now spreading across the African continent. Now, talk me through the latest Africa Solar Outlook 2023 report.
Well, we've been releasing this report for 3 years now, really trying to collect as much data in a very transparent and easy way to understand what are the trends of solar across Africa. And as you rightly mentioned, solar in Africa used to be concentrated in just a handful of countries: Egypt, South Africa, Morocco, Kenya. The very interesting trends of the past year is that solar is now really spreading across the entire continent. South Africa, Egypt, Kenya remain big countries, but now we see more and more pockets of solar markets developing across the continent.
So how do you determine what type of energy is needed in a particular region, whether wind or solar, as well as capacity needed?
Well, there's really two levels of looking into this. There's at the national level, the authorities will determine some long-term plans in terms of what they expect to be the population growth and the power consumption growth, and they make power plant development plans accordingly. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This is unfortunately the reality across the continent. But then again, you also have individuals and companies making their own choices based on their own unique needs, because this is now possible. Companies and individuals can procure their own solar projects for their own consumption. And this is really something very interesting happening throughout Africa.
Now, speaking about corporate PPAs, what are the pros and cons of the adoption of a corporate PPA and grid codes as policy measures to accelerate the clean energy transition?
Well, there's really big differences between countries in Africa. And to speak specifically about CNI, as we call it, the commercial and industrial segment, as well as the residential, for example, we see in South Africa and in Kenya very recent policy developments that now allow consumers to re-inject solar electricity into the grids and get some form of credit for this. This is called net metering, and this is really like a game changer in the solar industry because it allows for much bigger solar installations and in some cases covering up to 100% of your electricity consumption thanks to solar. So this is a really interesting trend to follow, something that AFSIA really tries to promote across the entire continent in cases where this is really beneficial, because this might not necessarily be beneficial for all countries across Africa. So it's really like a case-by-case basis.
That's interesting. So when it comes to a permanent energy source, will there come a time where we ditch the regular national grids, as you already know, that's what we're used to, and now go to solar 100%?
I don't think any reality of a country will be 100% without the grid, because in places where the grid already exists, it's beneficial. It's there and it's for everybody to use. Now, the reality is that in some countries, the grid is a little weak and not performing very well. And unfortunately, still in many locations across the continent, there simply is no grid. In those cases, well, people and companies are tempted to go, if they can afford it, are tempted to go 100% solar by themselves, off grid. And so this is potentially a risk for the national utility company. But you could also argue that this is a healthy pressure on the national utility company to provide a better service. So market forces play their role. And whenever people have an opportunity to get cheaper and more stable electricity through solar, it's only natural that they will make that choice.
And finally, on Energy Frontiers this week, the African Energy Chamber is offering a 20% discount to early birds registration for its high-profile annual gathering, Africa Energy Week for 2023, scheduled for October 16 to 20 at the waterfront in Cape Town, South Africa. More information on how you can register and participate at the Energy Forum can be found on the forum's website at www.aecweek.com. And that's how we lower the curtain on this week's package, and we hope you enjoyed it. Remember to follow Energy Frontiers on Frontier Africa Reports website, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us across all our social media handles as indicated on the screen. It's goodbye from me, Justina Okechukwu, and I'll see you next time on the show, proudly supported by the African Energy Chamber.